busy weekend on the sporting landscape, Pat. I suppose the NFL kind of took centre stage there in Croke Park. What did you make of that?
I love all sports. I struggle with American football. I find it a very long day to watch. I find the stoppages just turn me off a bit. But as a spectacle and as a show business occasion, it was brilliant, and it was lovely to know. I was jealous. I prefer to see Croke Park full in September with an All-Ireland final. But anyway, that's not going to happen. But it was lovely to showcase Croke Park, the magnificent stadium the GAA have, and it was lovely to showcase for the week Ireland and Dublin, whatever like that. And is there anything we can learn from it? Of course we can, because if there's anything the Americans can do, they can put on a show. And it just go, and it's something I mentioned in the podcast a couple of weeks ago after the All-Ireland about how crap and how poor the presentation is on the All-Ireland final day, and even for the All-Ireland final week. I mean, when it comes to the All-Ireland hurling final and All-Ireland football final, we should be showcasing football and hurling for the week. We should be taking over Dublin. We should be having, like the American football, we should be having street entertainment, we should be having parties, it should be a celebration of hurling for a week in Dublin, a celebration of football for a week in Dublin, and the occasion, the day itself should be a really big occasion. And goddamn well now now there's no curtain raiser, so right, the majority of people rock up to Croke Park just after 3:00. The poor Jubilee teams are waving to nobody. You're south of the Liffey in Dunleary or in Grafton Street, and no one knows there's even an All-Ireland on. And then the actual day itself, outside of the game, I mean, Jesus, it's like the Ballymagash GAA club would organise a piss up better than the GAA would for an All-Ireland final, because do you know the old Ballymagash GAA club, when they have a function, what do you do? Well, you get the old chairman's daughter to sing the national anthem, you get some fella with an accordion, and you get some score winner to do a few dances, and that's our show for the day. And that's all the GAA do on All-Ireland final day. We roll out a couple of score winners. Poor old Dahi O'Shea struggles interviewing two fellas at half-time who the majority of people haven't a clue who they are, and they can't hear them. We could do an awful lot. So, if there's anything we can learn from the Americans after this weekend, and I was one who welcomed the American football game to Croke Park. It'll generate a lot of revenue for the GAA, for Croke Park, and it's money that will be ploughed back into the grassroots, into coaching and games development. I have no issues with it. But like I said, we can learn that from now on, for our All-Ireland hurling final and All-Ireland football final, let's have a celebration of hurling for a week in Dublin. Let's have a celebration of football for a week in Dublin. Let's take over the city. Let's showcase our two beautiful games.
Yeah, it's probably a link up with Dublin City Council is nearly needed, like there seemed to be at the weekend where they took over Dublin Castle. They had, little challenges for young people taking on the kicking challenges. There was the different clubs, the Steelers, the Vikings, they took over different pubs in the city and used them as their bases. There was pub quizzes. There was this tailgating where, past players were up on the stages and there were interviews and, different things going on. They had music as well. So I suppose all things like that you'd like to see in the week leading up to the final.
Absolutely, Niall. It should be a celebration. That week in Dublin of a hurling final or a football final should be a celebration of hurling, should it be a celebration of our national game of Gaelic football, and should be showcasing the brilliance of the games, our superstars and everything. Instead, it's a bit of it's a box ticking exercise. Get it out of the way, take the money, and okay, good luck at 5 o'clock or 5:20. Well, I think GAA supporters deserve better. I think we can do a lot better. And if there's anything we can learn from the NFL, and these Americans are good at putting on a show, let's put on a show from now on when it comes to All-Ireland finals. Let's have a proper week out, a proper day out.
So there was lots of sport. There was the Ryder Cup as well, and we seen Shane Lowry dancing on the green after. Did that bring back any memories for you?
As everyone knows, I'm a sports nerd and I follow all sports. I mean, the Ryder Cup was captivating. It was absorbing. It was sporting drama at its very greatest. And I just love Shane Lowry. I just love everything about him. That he's such a brilliant golfer. He's such a clutch player. He's such a brilliant ambassador for Ireland. And he's also a great personality. I've never met the guy, but I love him. And Do you know, I was just thinking, I was saying, well, isn't this great? And the next minute he does the dance. And of course, next minute the boys have figured it out. I'm watching videos on Monday morning of Seamus Darby doing the same dance. It's a sort of buck lip. It must be an Offaly, a native Offaly dance. It's a sort of mad buck lipping around, yahooing. And Shane did it on Sunday in Betpage in New York. And Seamus Darby did it against in '82 when they beat us, and it brought back bad memories. But you know, I will say this about Offaly. What an amazing county. Like, it's not a large county in terms of population, but a brilliant dual county in terms of hurling and football. Now produced one of the greatest golfers of all time in Shane Lowry. And I just look back at my time with Offaly, and they beat us in '82. But I have great memories of great people and great families. And you talk about the O'Connors, and Matt Connor, one of the greatest footballers I ever played against, the Derbys and the Lowrys. What a great family. What an amazing sporting family. And by Jesus, I never begrudged Offaly that victory in '82, and you wouldn't begrudge Shane Lowry all the success. I mean, the only thing as a sporting person, I love all sports, and I like to be, well, obviously you shout for your own team, but like the behaviour of American supporters. I mean, a sport, you're either a sports follower or a sports supporter. Follow means you follow the team. Support, you support the team. They weren't followers or supporters. They were just assholes acting the idiot and went way beyond the boundaries of acceptable comment. It was embarrassing for them.
Coincidentally, 50 years ago on Sunday, it was the anniversary of your first All-Ireland win with Kerry in 1975, and a brilliant one for you, as you captained Kerry to beat Dublin 2-12 to 11 points. You scored 3 points on the day. So what are your memories of back then?
Do you know, when it gets to my age now, and I'll be 70 shortly, and myself and my family in another couple of weeks' time, we're celebrating our my 70th birthday. We're going to Nashville, the five of us, for 5 days. But when you get to 70, sadly, everything you're celebrating seems to be anniversaries. and I never realised it until I read so many newspaper articles at the weekend that it was 50 years to the day last Sunday that Kerry beat Dublin. And like magical memories, a special time. We were a bunch of young lads that Mick O'Dwyer had convinced that we could conquer the world, we could win an All-Ireland, we could down the invincible Dubs, and we did. And like, brilliant memories. Sad in a way when you reflect back on it, because some of the great players, first of all, the two greatest managers still the two greatest managers in Gaelic football, Mick O'Dwyer and Kevin Heffernan, they're no longer with us. Some of the greatest players of those two teams, some of the greatest warriors from those two teams are gone. Brian Mullins, Sean Doherty, Paddy Cullen. We lost Tim Kennelly, Paddy Shea, John Egan. Brilliant memories, though. Brilliant memories. And I will say this about it. I mean, like, All-Irelands come and All-Irelands go. But that 75 All-Ireland had a huge significance for the GAA, because the GAA in the 70s was in the doldrums. The GAA, pre-Dublin winning the All-Ireland in 74, in the early 70s, GAA had no interest. There was no interest in GAA in Dublin. There was only a couple going to watch county matches. And that Kerry-Dublin winning in 74, Kerry beating them in 75, started a rivalry which lasted from 75 to 86. And it made the GAA hot and sexy again. What those two teams, the rivalry between Kerry and Dublin, because it was the classic clash of the culture versus the city slicker, and it made GAA. It made Gaelic football hot and sexy again. It brought out the supporters, it brought out the colour, it brought out the razzmatazz, and it set the foundation for the great organisation that we now have again.
You were 19 at the time, and you were Kerry's vice captain on the day, and you got to lift the cup. So, like, what sort of experience was that for a very young man back then?
You know, like, it's gas in a way, and there was photographs. Like, people will say, and I know Joe Bradley has mentioned a few times in podcast, people, and I've been lucky. I was lucky that I was born in a county that's a successful football county, and I was very lucky to come along at a time when an exceptional bunch of players came along at the same time, and I was really lucky that a man called Mick O'Dwyer looked after us and guided us along, and we achieved so many things. And the one thing, like, about my achievements, and I'm very proud of all the achievements, but I'm not somebody that brags about them. If you come around this house today, there's no photographs on the wall of all, and there's no trophies. The All-Ireland medals are in a drawer somewhere. The All-Stars are scattered everywhere. And the one, I just looked at the photograph the last day in the newspapers, and the photograph was of me with Sam Maguire. And I mean, one of the ultimate honours you can have as a GAA player is to walk up the steps of the Hogan stand and hold that Sam Maguire over your head. I mean, it's just like, that's paradise, that's magic, that's you dream about. But I don't have it. It was only dawned on me last day, and I was saying to my wife for I said, geez, I'd love to have a photograph of that presentation in the house. And so we don't have a photograph, but I must, because it brought back memories. And I was just thinking, and we're talking about it, actually, I mentioned to you the other day that I was very lucky to, on 2 occasions, to walk up the steps of the Hogan stand and get and receive an All-Ireland trophy. And in 1978, I was captain of Thomond College in the All-Ireland Senior Club football final, and I accepted the All-Ireland Club winning trophy that day. And the gas part about that, there's no photograph of the occasion. And believe it or not, even though it was 1978 and matches were being televised at the time, there is no video evidence available anywhere that I've come across to show you any clips or highlights of that All-Ireland final between Thomond College and St. John's of Belfast. So, yeah, the last weekend brought back good memories. 50 years of time passes so fast, but 50 years of being part of one of the greatest football teams of all time.
So you were studying to be a PE teacher in Thomond College, and then you obviously just went on a phenomenal journey. Like, what? It's kind of, I suppose it's probably different playing with your college, and especially when you're playing against clubs. Like, what are your sort of memories of that experience? Because it was a brilliant run, wasn't it? Had you 3 games with Austin Stacks that year?
We had actually 4 games with Austin Stacks. And sorry, and the only reason I put you up, I googled it last night to find out because I couldn't remember. 4 of the greatest club matches of all time, we played Austin Stacks. I think we drew with them. Obviously we drew with them 3 times. I think at least 2 of them went into extra time, and there was still a draw after extra time. Unbelievable matches. But like, we were a college team, we were a county team playing inside in Limerick. I mean, was it fair? Absolutely unfair. Did we do anything to promote Gaelic football in Limerick? Absolutely not, absolutely not. And like, we played in an All-Ireland colleges final, All-Ireland club final. I mean, the night before, we slept on couches in Limerick. This is the night before an All-Ireland, because a college team, we didn't have money and we couldn't afford hotel accommodation only for one night. So we stayed on the Sunday night. But on the Saturday night, like I said, I know I slept on a couch, and we were couch surfing in fellas' houses in Castletroy. And who went to the game, the All-Ireland final? Barrow family. That's all there was at the game. So, have I much memory of it? Absolutely no memory of it. But like I said, it was a nice All-Ireland medal to have in here. So.
It's in some ways it's similar to, at this time of the year, we're all focusing on the club championship, and the Kerry Club Championship is one that people try to wrap their head around at this time of the year. And I suppose I'm comparing the college, Thomond College, to sort of the divisional section in Kerry, and I suppose that's what's going on at the minute, where we have the divisions playing off as their route into the county championship, with the clubs coming into it now this weekend. So yeah, this year there's 9 senior clubs in Kerry. There's 7 divisions. There's a new division, North Kerry, which is a mix of what were 2 former divisional teams.
Yeah.
So yeah, what is your take on this as the Kerry Club Championship heats up?
I know I attempted to explain this a couple of weeks ago, and if I really wanted to fully explain this, this podcast would last for a couple of days, because the Kerry County Championship involves, like you said, it involves 9 clubs and 7 districts. And next year it'll involve an extra 10 clubs and 7 districts. And this weekend there are 6 divisional teams now playing 6. There are 6 county championship games this week. 2 got byes. But in theory, the divisional system is a great idea in theory. In theory, it's a great idea because, one, it gives the fellas from the small clubs a chance to join together in a divisional team and to play higher grade football, which will improve them as footballers. It gives them the fella from the small club playing Division 5, playing Division 6, playing novice championship, who will never be seen by county selectors. It'll give him an opportunity to perform on the big stage and be seen on the big stage. And it's a great idea. There's two problems now. One problem is the fact there's an awful lot of competition. At one stage, that was the only county championship. Obviously, we have club championship with years. And bear in mind, so after these county championships finish, the district board championships start. So potentially, even though David Clifford probably won't be playing with us in the East Kerry, like potentially David has another, if East Kerry are going to win the championship, David will have another 4 matches in the county championship. And if he wants to win the East Kerry championship with Fossa, he'd have 3 matches. So he's another 7 matches in the year. 7 matches bring him into training with the inter-county season. But anyway, the big problem, right, so in theory, the small clubs join together as division, good idea. So you take South Kerry. South Kerry last week beat St. Brendan's and they're in the quarter-final or in the preliminary quarter-final today. But South Kerry is an amalgamation, and it's my peninsula. It's west from here. It's an area that's decimated by rural depopulations, clubs struggling to field teams, struggling to field at underage level. They need support, but they won, and all the teams are from Division 3 clubs down to Division 6 clubs. So it's an amalgam of 8 clubs, but they're small clubs. They're junior. They're all. So that's a great idea. Next year, the Gaeltacht will go senior, so the West Kerry will only have 3 junior clubs: Auniscall, Castle Gregory, and Lisbon. So that's the good. That's great. Okay, bringing small teams together. The problem is when you bring teams together, you also create juggernauts. So North Kerry, as you just mentioned, is a new division in Kerry. It's 13 clubs. 13 clubs. North Kerry is north of Tralee to the Shannon Estuary. It includes big towns like Ballybunion, like Listowel, like Tarbert, whatever like that. So a conglomerate like North Kerry will play Kenmare, a single club, next Sunday. North Kerry against Kenmare. It gets even worse because East Kerry are the juggernaut. East Kerry have been the superpower of divisional teams. And East Kerry, obviously they have the Cliffords now, Paddy's out injured, but they have 5 top intermediate teams, and along with 2 other clubs. So there's 7 clubs. East Kerry, the East Kerry area is that huge commuter belt, including sort of in between Killaglan, Tralee and Killarney. It's the fastest growing population in Kerry. It's a huge populated area. And next Saturday, East Kerry with the Cliffords, they could field an inter-county player, senior, a fellow who's played inter-county senior some level in every one of the 15 positions. So East Kerry next Saturday play Templenoe. Now, Templenoe haven't a town, haven't a village, haven't a church that's opened anymore on a regular basis. Templenoe haven't a national school, can't field teams together, can't field a team at underage, have to amalgamate. So little Templenoe will be playing the juggernaut that is East Kerry next Saturday. And at the moment, Templenoe have 2 lads who immigrated to Australia this year. They have 1 lad in England, 3 of the first 15. They have 2 injuries, and they're really, honestly, they have probably 18 fit players to play against East Kerry on Saturday. And is that unfair? Yes, it's unfair. That's not a level playing field. So in theory, a great idea, but it's sort of created a monster with certain regions.
Like when you mention that, it probably goes to show the highlight or the achievement that it is for Templenoe to be up senior. And I know they had a few brilliant years in, like, won an All-Ireland junior, and but like it's probably just a battle all the time to have enough players.
Like Templenoe is a small rural club, like I said, with no national school, no church, no nothing. What happens, as you know now, with small rural areas is it's cyclical. Every 50 years or 60 years or 40 years, a bunch of young lads just happened to come along. We were very lucky that a bunch of young lads came along. They stuck together. We won an All-Ireland junior club, beaten an All-Ireland intermediate, and were beaten by 1 point in the Kerry Senior Club final. But at the moment in the Kerry Senior Club Championship, there's no relegation this year. So there'll be Templenoe will now be a senior club again next year. And to be quite honest, Templenoe, I'm looking at a team they gave us great memories and great honours, but I'm just looking at a team that's just dying before our eyes because it's a numbers game and they don't have the numbers coming through, and you're dependent on the same fellas just to carry us through. So it's a struggle. Probably the sad reality for the likes of Timpano is that in 10 years' time, we'll probably be playing Division 5 football. Probably that's the sad reality, which is a pity. But you know, I've had this rant every week about rural Ireland, and I've said 2 weeks ago we talked about the GAA club, the rural GAA club being the canary in the coal mine, because if you see a GAA club struggling with numbers, and if you see a GAA club struggling to field the teams, struggling to get underage teams, you know this is an area suffering from depopulation. This is an area that's dying, and sadly, and I say it every week, and I'd love to say somebody is doing something about it. No one is doing anything about it. You know, I even looked to God save us. I don't know what you watched it now, but I mean, I lost 70 minutes of my life last night watching the presidential debate. It was the dullest, uninspiring debate I ever. And I'm sort of saying, one of these is going to be the president of this country to lead this country. And you say, oh, God forbid. Oh, gee. So anyway, I despair of politicians because I just think that they stick to, and I'm talking about all parties, too much sticking to script and not enough doing action, not enough action by them. I'm in despair about it. But I won't get into a rant about rural Ireland. But I did lose 70 minutes of my life last night. All right.
You weren't impressed? Were you impressed by Jim Gavin, or do you think he could get in, or what do you think? I
love politics, but I'm not a member of any party, and I'm like what Jim has done is unbelievable as a player in his career and whatever like that. But for the first ever time, all Jim's job was in the Air Corps or with Dublin. You control the controllables. He was in charge. Now he's out of his comfort zone. And like I said, a man at 54 with such leadership abilities and such intelligence, and you're sending him into a semi-retirement home in the Áras if he gets elected. What a waste of time. But like the poor man, I feel sorry for him because, you know, like I admire all politicians who are prepared to put their head above and want to be elected, and you have to admire, obviously they're all people of great ability, but like the social media stuff that Jim had to face there for the last couple of weeks was horrific. No, and I know what it's like, because I tell you this, I mean, on a smaller scale, while I was on the Sunday game, particularly the last 10 years, the social media abuse, it started getting to me. But more important, what was worse about the social media was I know it was affecting my family. And it was like, I have no issue with people disagreeing with me, but it was personal, it was libelous, it was slanderous. And you start to say, and no one doing anything about it. And like what he had to suffer for the last couple, it was horrific. But like, obviously Dublin, like, he was brilliant as a manager with Dublin, but Dublin were obviously a very, very driven team. But like Jim, like, I've never met the man, but like certainly he's not very outspoken, and he's not very articulate, and he's not coming across as very charismatic. And I know they're choreographed and they're rehearsed and they're trained to an inch of their life, but geez, he was overtrained last night. He was very wooden. He was very wooden. But look, there's only one way he can go for after last night, and that's up.
Well, you were never tempted into a life in politics yourself, were you?
I was asked a couple of times, you know. I swear to God, I was asked a couple of times, and oh no, geez, no. And like I said, I admire politicians, and I admire what, like, they're prepared to put in huge hours and whatever like that. But no, thank you, not that. It's a 24/7 rat race. No, like the only sad reality, you know, I think in this country we should have national politicians that look after, that are with the interests of Ireland as a whole at heart, rather than all politicians, all politics being local, and it's all about delivering the medical card, filling the pothole, and getting the grant for this and the grant for that, rather than this is the problem I see with rural Ireland, because, and they're all everyone is, every TD who lives in rural Ireland is passionate about rural Ireland, but they're still interested in getting votes. That means it's all short term. It's a bit handing out a bit here, handing out a bit there, as regards a long-term plan for a sustainable future for people to live in and work in a rural land. Jesus, no, they're not interested in that at all.
Very good. I suppose just we were talking about the divisions in Kerry and so on. like, do you see any, like, what is your kind of, what should be the setup for the Kerry Football Championship? Do you keep the divisions, or what way do you go about it?
I'm not too sure, is there any, like with the split season now, one of the problems with this, like the split season is, in theory, I can see what's his form, and it's going to stay some form of split season, even though I've mentioned, like, the solution, what's a better solution? And I've mentioned several times, okay, it needs a bit of, I said, why don't have a split season between club and county, and in other words, and football and hurling? Why do they all have to club one time, foot inter-county in the other? I would say, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again here, that if you had inter-county football for the first 6 months with club hurling, and if you had inter-county hurling with club football for the second month, and then flip it over for the second year, that you sort of, you can get, I think it's a solution. But the problem at the moment is that with the way it is formatted, is that the elite player with the successful club is now going 13 months of the year. He will start training with his county in November, maybe finish the All-Ireland final. The club is going all the time. And then now when it comes to split season, like, they're playing so many matches, it's everything in the inter-county is squeezed into a short frame of time, and everything in the club season is squeezed into a short frame of time as well. So we still need to expand it. We still need to tweak it. We still need to change it. I'm all for divisionals if it's involving small clubs. I'm all for creating a level playing pitch. But like we've talked about, and fairness, and I love club, like the club action, and I'm on Clubber morning, noon and night. I watch as many games I can on Clubber. TG Carr is brilliant. I was watching Lavey and Schlockneil on Saturday. I watched Ballyhale against Thomastown on Sunday. And I watch all the Kerry Club Championship matches, and they're brilliant. But the thing about Club Championship matches we must realise is that club matches are parochial. They're sort of under the radar. They don't get the national profile, but they're brilliant. Like, they're brilliant matches. The quality. Kerry had 2 championship matches last Sunday involving 4 divisional teams: South Kerry and Brindans, and North Kerry and St. Kieran's. They were brilliant matches, absolute outstanding matches, really top class matches. But I love the romance of the club championship, the way, as I said many times, the J Club is the glue that keeps all those communities together. The J Club is our badge of identity. And if the J Club is going well, it lifts, a rising tide lifts all boats. It's absolutely brilliant. And like, I talked in a couple of weeks ago in my article, we talked about the old fellas plying their trade at the moment. Johnny Dials and Brendan Cumminses and all the Michael Hegarty and his son up in Kilcar playing junior championship. And Charles Kickham wrote his novel Knock na Go about the honour and glory of the little village. But I was just looking at a few interesting articles during the week, and like, the little village is now a global village when it comes to club, because the amount of club players that I know of that are flying in from abroad to play with their club in the championship every week is unbelievable. I was at a challenge match last Saturday. Timperno were playing Eve Larry, which is in Chigeel in Cork. And I was talking to one of the Eve Larry supporters, and he said he had collected his son that morning. 3 of them come in from London every week for Inchigeela for Eve Larry matches. He had collected them that morning at Kerry Airport. They'd flown in, they left Luton, they got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, flew into Luton, Kerry, were flying out of Cork that night. I was talking to another fella from Cork who, they have a player who comes from Dubai for every weekend for championship matches. And I thought, and because he's a lad I know well, Mikey Gordon, who plays football with Sligo. Mikey is a dual player. He plays with Easky in hurling and football. But Easky were in a relegation battle last weekend against Curry to stay up in the senior championship. Mikey flew from Australia the day before to play with Easky in the relegation. Easky won, and Mikey flew back to Australia 2 days later. So isn't it wonderful, those stories, like doing it for the honour and glory of the little village, and just the length and effort people are prepared to travel to play for their club, to wear the club jersey, proud to wear that badge. There are amazing stories out there.
It was the same thing last weekend when Johnny Dial got the winning goal for Allenwood to keep them up from the relegation final. Darren Malone one of their key players for the last few years. He flew back from Australia for the relegation final as well. So it just goes to show, and I suppose especially when it comes down to relegation, Pat, you know, the future clubs are at stake. So lads can, you know, they'll go to all sorts of lengths to save them.
It's just brilliant. Like I said, I like the power and the, like, people don't give credit to what GAA clubs have done, particularly in rural communities. But like, they are, like I said, they are the glue that keeps all those communities together. They are what provides that badge of identity for people. And like I said, you know yourself, when you get to a county final for a little club is just amazing. And you see Courtwood in Laois now reaching a county final for a first ever time. Absolutely brilliant. But I'm looking at the county championships, and like the county championships now, because it's the first year under the new rules in Gaelic football, the standard is unbelievable. The standard of club football, particularly at the senior championship, has even risen. But one trend I'm noticing is that the powerhouses of the club football scene under the old rules haven't gone away. And like this year's All-Ireland Club Football Championship final, I'm looking at the big guns, and they're motoring along nicely. You've Dr. Crokes and Kerry, Nemo and St. Finbarrs and Cork, Éire Ogan, Innis, Corra Finn are shaping up lovely in Galway. St. Bridget's are back to playing top-class football. I watch Kilmacud. They'll be a threat to Coola in Dublin. You have Naas. They had one defeat, but they're back on the hobby horse again. Ergil Kieran are still in line for a back-to-back, first ever back-to-back titles in Tyrone. And you have the Glen and Kilcoon Ulster all playing brilliant football and all probably raging hot favourites in their counties. So not alone is the standard improving, but it's going to be the All-Ireland Senior Club Football Championship this year will be one hell of a competition.
St. Bridget's as well. I'm not sure if you mentioned there. You did. They're going well in Roscommon as well. So like themselves and Glen had a brilliant final 2 years ago now. So yeah, as you mentioned, they're all kind of still standing, and it is shaping up to be brilliant, even though we're only at the county final stages really. And
that's why I said, I mean, the brilliance. Look, the national. With the exception of TG Cargo, but national media, and particularly TV and radio, pretty much aren't interested or ignore. They only give token coverage to the club championship. So like that's why what Clubber is doing for the club championship with 60 and 70 and 80 games, and what streaming services in other counties like in Dublin and in Sligo are doing for the club championship is unbelievable, because it's after bringing club championships to an entirely new audience. And like I said, we have good projects at club level, and we may as well and showcase them and highlight them and whatever like that. So it's really enjoyable. I'm like, obviously I miss the intercounty, because that's the blue ribbon of our sport, of our association. But the club championships are delivering damn good, and I'm looking forward now this weekend. Now, like I said, huge matches in Kerry, but particularly one big match, mid Kerry and Crokes, and like. The craziness of the Kerry club of the Kerry championship, remember, is that Dr. Crokes are the Kerry club champions, but and will represent Kerry in the club championship. But if another club wins the county championship, say for example Dingle, if Dingle win the Kerry county championship, then it'll be Dingle, not Dr. Crokes, that'll be representing Kerry. And if you're still with me after that, Jesus, you have a good head. You're taking everything in. So have we knockout games in the Kerry Championship this weekend? Yes, from now on it's knockout. So I hope I'll be talking to you next week, and Timperno are in the quarter-final of the Kerry Senior Football Championship, but I think we'll need a lot of prayers to St. Jude. Who knows, maybe, I don't know. You're a man who knows a thing or two about All-Stars, Pat, having won 9 more than any other Gaelic footballer. But it was a bit of a hot topic last week, with Kerry only getting 9 nominations to Donegal's 10, despite Kerry having won the All-Ireland. I suppose All-Stars are an individual accolade. So I suppose, what did you make of the All-Star nominations? Look, All-Star selections are subjective. So, like, the best team of all time, the best player of all time, the best 15 players, it's completely subjective. You're never going to get You're never going to get unanimity. You're never going to get total agreement. Look, I've been writing for the Sunday World and now the Independent for 34 years, and the easiest article in the world to produce is to have a go at the All-Star team, the whatever team that they've selected, and it's the equivalent of shooting fish in a barrel. It's easy peasy, like, because you can take them apart. This year was the first ever time that they've given me an opportunity to have a go at them. You'd start to say you can't get the nominations wrong. There's 45 players nominating. You start to say, well, you probably have them all, but like, and I can go nitty gritty into some of them. But like the one that stood out was, holy God, Kerry got 9 and Donegal get 10. And that hasn't happened since 1996 when Mayo got more nominations than Meath, who had won the All-Ireland. And I'm trying to make sense of it. And like, it's an opinion. So I look at it and I say, this is wrong. This is a joke. Okay. And people say, are you wearing your Kerry hat? I'm not. So here's the evidence. Here's the hard facts, right? Here's the hard facts. Kerry 2025 won the double, National League and All Ireland. Boom. That puts you ahead. Second fact, Kerry beat Donegal, the team with the most nominations, by 10 points in the All Ireland final, comfortably. That's 2. The last 3 games that Kerry played in the championship were against arguably the 3 foreign teams in the country: Armagh, Tyrone, and Donegal. Their average winning margin in the 3 biggest championship matches of the year was 8 points. So, like, you're now start to realising that, Jesus, they only got 9 and the other crowd got 10. Absolutely bonkers. But, maybe it's, you got back, and I got a lot of flack in it because look, it's easy to be wise. The winners get to write the history. And I remember, like, after the All-Ireland, the one thing I had a go at them, I criticised all the people who had backed Donegal to win the All-Ireland. And like, shock horror, the majority of the Ulster, Northern pundits, with the exception of 1 or 2, but the majority of them opted for Donegal because Jimmy was the Messiah. Donegal were on a mission. They weren't going to be beaten. And I think there's still a few, the all-star selector in football still think that Jimmy is the Messiah and Donegal are on a mission and Donegal are going to win the All-Ireland. They didn't, and they're a great team, second best team, and deserve the second highest number of nominations. But the highest number of nominations, I must be joking, not open the world.
Who do you think was the most unlucky out of the Kerry 6 that didn't get nominated? So you have Paul Murphy, Dylan Casey, Sean O'Brien, Mark O'Shea, Graham O'Sullivan and Dylan Gainey.
I'll give you the 3. I felt 3. Mr. Dependable, Paul Murphy deserved the nomination. I would certainly provide an argument for Dylan Casey, who came good at the end. I would certainly provide a strong argument for Graham O'Sullivan. And I'll tell you why. Because I think, people talk about about how Kerry won the All-Ireland. One of the masterstrokes was the switch of Graham O'Sullivan from a half-back to a half-forward. Because what are Graham's qualities as a footballer? Graham's qualities as a footballer is his athleticism, his physicality. He's a powerful runner. He was the ideal player. He was the ideal player to play that link role between defence and attack, which is vital under the new rules. I would have Graham O'Sullivan. So that's 3.
Brilliant.
I would have brought it to 12. I would settle to 12. But I will say this about the team, whatever the team will be fixed. And I was actually going through it, and you know the team. There's a formula. So, and it'll be the same formula this year. So the bulk of the team will come from the 2 All-Ireland finalists. That's no doubt about it. The All-Ireland semi-finalists will have, I would think, 1 each. So that's 14. And 1 player will come from the quarter-finalists, and that will be, I'll give you the name already, I'm 99%, will be Oisin Connaughty. So that'll be the All-Star team this year. And I was looking at the team of the year from the Sunday game. It could be very similar, I think. It's not one of the more difficult teams to pick. Just on
the All-Stars, mentioned at the start of this discussion, that you won 9. What was the kind of ceremony like back then? Because you were obviously at a number of them. And what are your memories from them?
I would still rate the All-Star is second to an All-Ireland medal. I really, it's something that, that I'm very proud to have. I have 9 All-Stars and I'm in the lead with David Clifford will be passing it. Look, David, in a couple of years' time, David Clifford will, if he stays fit, will be blowing all these records out to the water. And he'll be passing out Shefflin's record and hurling All-Stars as well. And he'll be passing out, he'll be this footballer of the year. So great years. And there were like no expense. It was our Oscar night. For want of a better word, it was our Oscar night. The All-Star banquet was the Oscar night. It was the red carpet. It was where you, on a rare occasion, got 5-star luxury treatment. Special night, special memories. Oh, great. Absolutely great. And brilliant trophies. The trophies, in fairness to all the various sponsors down through the year, the trophies were they were works of art. They were fabulous pieces of sculpture. So great. I must start looking. I know there's one. I donated one of them to the Croke Park Museum. The rest I must go looking for them now. I think there's one down in Spillane's bar and there's a few around the house.
Very good, very good. A good complaint to have. Look, thanks very much for joining us this week, Pat. That's all we've time for today, but I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon.
Pleasure, Niall.